Howdy guys, welcome back to BRG Photography. This is Ben, and this is a follow-up video to my previous video I did where I compared frequent separation and dodge and burn in Affinity Photo. And this is the video where I'm going to really go in depth on how I use frequent separation in Affinity to go from this to this. So stay tuned and we'll jump right in. Alrighty guys, welcome back. So here we are with our frequency separation. Now this is the frequency separation edit I did for the last video. This is the after and here is the before. So this is going to kind of be our goal that we're working toward. I'm not going to do the whole edit in this video, but I'll show you enough of the techniques. And this time I'm actually going to provide this image so that you can download it so you can practice along, follow along, and practice some of the techniques on your own. So let me just go ahead and delete this because we don't need it anymore. And I'm going to make a new layer so I can start drawing our game plan in a sense. First, I like to always ask myself, not probably actually out loud, but I'm thinking to myself, what are the things that I want to fix in this image? And fix is kind of the wrong word because it sounds like something is broken, but we're just going to use the word fix or correct just to basically mean to retouch the skin to where it looks beautiful and just enhance the beauty more. So we have this beautiful model with this really beautiful, great skin texture. And what I want to do is I want to retouch it to the point where it still looks so natural that even she herself might not even realize it had been retouched. So I'm always happy when a model even asks me if I even did any retouching or editing, because for her it just looks so natural. And I'm happy because that means it doesn't look overly done. It doesn't look too retouched or overly smoothed out or like some kind of crazy Instagram filter. And that's kind of the look I'm going for, to keep it kind of looking natural, but you can definitely tell it's just nice looking, I guess, in a sense. So right off the bat, when I look at this image, there are some things that I know that I want to correct. Easy things like this, these stray hairs. Now, these aren't really going to be taken care of in frequency separation per se, but I'll show you just how I'm going to get rid of that. But things like this, you see this dark spot on the bridge of her nose, some of this darkness under the eyes. These are things that I don't want to completely get rid of, just kind of reduce. Even around here, you get these kind of dark spots on the corners of the mouth, which you see this quite frequently. I don't want to completely remove them. I just want to reduce them just a little bit. But other things that are less noticeable are things like this. You see these kind of almost these three lines here on the cheek. That's just a little, that's showing some kind of bumpiness, and it's just showing some inconsistencies in the skin that I want to kind of smooth out and make it look a little nicer. Even here we have a little more bumps. There's some kind of bumpiness here. There's kind of a dark spot on the side of the head here, which you could fix. This might be just a weird shadow or something, I'm not sure. Even here, we have this lighter patch on the back of her jaw. It might be just the makeup ending right here, or again, it might be something from the lighting, I'm not sure. We also have some patchiness here on the chin. In the last video, we didn't cover it, but you can also apply all these effects to other parts of the body. So like here we have some patchiness in the chest area, kind of dark spots here. Those are some of the things that we're going to be addressing and fixing in frequency separation. So let's go ahead and delete that. So now, before I even start with my frequency separation, there's another thing that you can do, and you can do this before or after. And that's going to be, if you've watched my other videos, you know I like to go ahead and do a cleanup step where I'll come in with a new layer and I'll take my in-painting brush and I'll just go ahead and spend about 5 minutes just going through and, you know, getting rid of all these little tiny little things, you know, things like this, these little bumps here that you're not going to be able to get with frequency separation. So sometimes I'll spend the time just maybe like this line here, just to get rid of all these little details. Or you can not do that now and you can do it after you do your frequency separation. It might be easier for you to see the smaller details once the underlying skin has been smoothed out. It's really up to you. It's your preference how you want to work. I'll tell you, we'll do a few and then we'll do some more after we do our frequency separation. Let me just do a few here, like some of the really noticeable ones, some of the bigger well, so I guess like the bigger bumps that we want to try to fix. And then after we do frequency separation, some of the other less noticeable ones might become more apparent, and then we can refix those in a different layer. So let me just go ahead and just do these for now. We'll just do that. We'll say, okay, that's fine. Just so I can show you there's different ways. This freckle, that's going to be a personal preference. You can keep it, you can get rid of it. It doesn't bother me. I think it looks fine, so we're going to keep that. But I think we're going to do that for now. Okay. And maybe this thing here, maybe even some of these bigger spots. You can, the in-painting brush in Affinity Photo is fantastic and does a really great job of getting rid of just these little inconsistencies, and does a really smart job of doing it. So, okay, maybe that freckle on top of the forehead. All right, something like that. I'm just going to end it here. We can do some more later. You can see all we did is just those little really micro things we fixed. All right, let's get to the main part that you're probably watching this video for, and that is for frequency separation. So what I'm going to do is, I guess because we've done this, let me go ahead and go up to here, and you're going to go to, which one is it? Layer, and you're going to go to Merge Visible. And that's going to basically create a new layer with everything that we've done to it. So that's our new layer, including our retouches or our little corrections there. So with this new pixel layer done, I'm going to come up to Filters, and we're going to go to Frequency Separation. And in Affinity Photo, it's just one step, which is what I love. And you're going to be presented with this screen where you've got your high frequency layer being shown to you on the left and your low frequency layer being shown to you on the right. And what we want to do here, and this is the most important step in frequency separation, is getting this initial radius setting, I guess, good. If you don't set it up right initially, it's gonna maybe look a bit too smooth, or you won't actually be doing enough to see any real difference. So what exactly is this showing us? It's basically showing me on the left side all the detail that is going to be preserved on our high frequency layer, and on the left side it's going to be showing me the things that I can actually, or it's going to show me the low frequency layer, and that's the part that we want to start working on the most. If we take this, for example, too far, let's use those three lines as an example. So earlier I said that there's these three kind of lines on the cheek right here, these 1, 2 that we're going to fix. Now if I move this radius slider too far forward, those lines disappear. That means that if I want to start editing on the low frequency layer, I can't, because I can't see them. They're actually being preserved here on the high frequency layer, so we don't want to do that. But on the other end, if this radius slider is too low, we start to see all the detail, which means if we start doing some heavy painting or healing brush, we're going to also be removing all this little skin texture and these little pores and stuff. We don't want to do that. So what we want to do is try to find a nice medium ground where you start to lose the high fine detail on the right side, but you can still see the parts that you want to correct, namely these three shadow lines that we had. Even things like down here in the chin, right? If we go too far, you can't really see the patchiness on the chin. And if we go too low, we see everything. So we're trying to find a nice spot where we can just see the things that we want to correct. And that's why this is great having this slide. You can kind of move it around and see, okay, all this skin texture here is being preserved. And I can see, but that shadow part is still there. So I know I can work on that. Let's go down to the chest, for example. Let's zoom out a little bit. Okay, like I can see like the color is not there, but I can see the color is here. So I know that I can paint over this and I can adjust and remove that color. So let's say something like, maybe for this image, I'm going to say 6.3. Now I can't give you a specific number because every image is going to be different. It's going to depend on your image size, the megapixels of your camera, and if the portrait's a wide portrait, close-up, extreme close-up. So you're going to have to play with that slider yourself for each individual image. But for this image, I think around 6.3 probably looks okay. Let's do that. We'll do 6.2. How about that? I'm going to hit apply. It's going to take a second. And then we're going to get two new layers. One's going to be called low frequency and one's going to be called high frequency. So what I like to do first is, with the low frequency layer selected, I'm going to create a new pixel layer. And then I guess I'm just going to group these together. I'm going to grab all three, hit Command G, and we will call this FS. And this is just for labeling purposes, makes it easier for me to locate things as the image is more and more complex with more layers. Alrighty, so let's get to work. Now, for me, I find it really easy to work in frequency separation when I turn the high frequency layer off. This way, I'm only seeing the things that I can affect. If I have the high frequency layer on, you don't exactly know what you have total control over. I might see something like this little spot here and try to erase it, but I can't because that little spot is perhaps preserved on the high frequency layer and it's not on the low frequency layer, so I can't actually affect it. So by turning the high frequency layer off, you're only being shown the things that you have control over. Selecting that new layer that we made between the high frequency and low frequency layer, this is the layer we're gonna be doing all of our not in painting, but healing brush, clone stamping, paintbrush. I'm going to show you a few different techniques that you can use when doing frequency separation. For me, my favorite technique is actually using the healing brush. I find the healing brush works really great because it naturally tries to blend in the source and the target spots, and you can set your opacity and do 100% flow. You can set your opacity low to say like 40%. 0% hardness. That way you can have a little bit more control over how much you want to reduce things. So with our new pixel layer selected, and make sure we have set to current layer and below, we're using our healing brush with a 40% opacity, 100% flow, 0% hardness. Let's go ahead and tackle those three lines we were talking about earlier. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and sample from somewhere around maybe here and just heal brush over that. I'm going to move my little sampling area to kind of make it match as the skin gets a bit darker, and just kind of come in here and try to get rid of that. And another reason why I like the healing brush is it's really good at smoothing out transitions. And so you see we get this light part here and this dark part here. If I grab this lighter part and just kind of put it right, if I sample from this lighter part and just kind of go right in between, it is going to give me a nice, like, smooth transition from that high to light to dark. Same right here. We kind of have this light part here and this kind of red patchiness here. Maybe I'm going to sample from somewhere around right here and just kind of go over that patchiness part, and it's going to turn into a nice, smooth transition. I'm going to do that here. And let's start over here as well. Sample from this area. Let's get rid of some of this and patchiness here. And like here, these darkness under the eyes, we can just kind of blend this in a bit better. And if I want to go over it without completely erasing it, I can lower my opacity to like 10% or something. And then just sample from here and just go over it a little bit. And that's just going to be enough to reduce it without completely getting rid of it. So I'm going to bring my opacity back up to 40% by pressing 4 on the keyboard. And let's actually try to fix this area. We have this really harsh line of a darkness and kind of this reddish. So I'm going to go ahead and sample from this red area here. And just like I said, I'm going to put that healing brush right in between. And just by doing that, you see it really smoothed that out. So let me just do this for a little bit more, and then I'm going to turn the high frequency layer back on, and you're going to see what we have done. So let's just do that right now. Get that out of the way. So now let's turn our high frequency layer back on and zoom out a little bit. And if we turn that pixel layer on and off, you can see it's actually quite subtle, but we got pretty much rid of those shadows there. But at the same time, you notice all that top skin texture is still right there, preserved perfectly. And I think I had mentioned that one thing I like about frequency separation is just how fast it is. So let me show you again, like if I turn it back on, let's go over here, let's tackle this cheek. If I just come out here really fast and be really aggressive, I can really smooth out a lot of that bumpiness on this cheek pretty quick, a lot faster than it would be if I was doing the dodge and burn technique. I'm not saying that frequency separation is a replacement for dodge and burn or that it's better than dodge and burn. I actually do personally enjoy the dodge and burn process. I kind of like just the detail work involved, so I do actually like it. And I do think that frequency separation and dodge and burn used in combination can be really powerful, and you can really do some amazing fine detail skin work using both together. So let's see, I'm just doing that cheek there. This will actually come down over here. I'm just moving I'm still using the healing brush at 40%, and I'm moving my samples around to try to match. I don't want to sample up here, obviously, then try to like paint down here, because then you're gonna get, a weird patch. It's not gonna blend very well. You can kind of see like it's got too bright. You want to try to sample from like areas. So I want to sample from here to fix this area. We talked about the sides of the mouth. So you can just sample from right here maybe, and just hit it once or twice just to kind of reduce it a little bit without completely getting rid of it. We do the same thing on this side. Sample from there, and we've got a little bit of dark patch here we can fix. And this light part of the cheek, we can kind of correct that a little bit, maybe just by taking this dark part and using the heel brush to kind of push it over, in a sense. Do something like that. Okay, and maybe we got some bumpiness here. And let's just go ahead and do this one cheek and take a look at it. And we've got a little bit of patchiness here that we can kind of fix. Okay, all right, let's do that. Okay, so let's turn our high frequency layer back on. And yeah, you can see how that just smooths out the skin without really removing any of that detail. But what's most important is we've kept all this great detail. We've kept all of her wonderful natural skin detail. We've just kind of removed the underlying lighting inconsistency, shadows inconsistency, skin tone inconsistency under the skin. We talked about that dark part on the bridge. Now, for example, this time I'm going to leave the high frequency layer on. I'm going to sample from around here and just kind of get rid of that, like so. There you go. That did it okay. Maybe try to get rid of that darkness under the eye. You can see, for example, if you're trying to like get rid of that dark spot, you can't, because if we turn it off, you can see we can't see it on the low frequency layer, which means we can't have an effect on it. So that's why I find it really useful to continue just to have the high frequency layer off when we are working. You're not limited to just the healing brush when doing frequency separation. There are other tools that you can use which are going to be just as useful, and it's going to be a preference thing. Another thing you can do is you can just use a normal paintbrush. So if I grab a normal paintbrush, and let's do a low flow brush of 2%, still painting on that same layer, you can actually just use a normal paintbrush, sample from a nearby color, and then just kind of actually paint over that. When I do my sampling, it's a good idea to go to your, I guess they call it, what do they call it? Color picker tool or eyedropper. It's probably on default going to be set 0.1 to 1, which means it's going to be sampling the exact single pixel under your mouse cursor. But we don't want to do that because the skin is made up of so many different colors. It's better to actually set your average to like something like 17 or 65, where it looks at the 65 pixels around and gives the average color of those pixels. That way you're going to have a bit more accurate to the general look and color of the image and not like one particular pixel. So moving back to our paintbrush, I can go ahead and sample from somewhere right here. And remember, this is not clone, we're just painting. I'm going to grab a maybe light color here. I'm going to paint here. Grab this, maybe just paint. Usually it works better if you do big, broad strokes so you don't get too I guess, too detailed with it. Maybe I can try to paint and get rid of that part there. And let me just do some bigger, and actually use some of this white and maybe kind of paint. See if we can get rid of that. And let's see. This is, I think, I'm going to say maybe a bit more of an advanced technique, just because you do actually have to be a painter in a sense. You're basically painting the underlying skin. This is the one technique you have to be really careful, because it's really easy to go too far and make it look a bit phony, or make it look actually a bit painted, which maybe you don't want it to look like that. So let's go ahead and turn that off and see what we've done. And I think that one came out okay. If we're looking at just the chin, yeah, you can see I just did that just by using a paintbrush. And if we look at it for distance, you can see it's really subtle, but those subtle changes can have a really big effect on the whole image. This is going to probably work really well down here in the chest, where the color inconsistency is just a little bit off. So I can come in here, maybe sample from this color and just lightly paint. And I don't have to go all the way. I might want to keep a little bit of that natural, skin is not perfect. Nobody's skin is really perfect. So it's okay to keep a little bit of these, the kind of inconsistency, the imperfection. I think it's totally fine to keep that. You can then switch back to your healing brush, and maybe I'm going to switch my healing brush to just kind of get rid of these like bumps and this spotchiness that we have here in the chest. Going back and forth. And I guess if we're using those tools, you can really use anything. If you want to use the clone stamp tool, you can use the normal clone stamp tool, preferably probably as a low opacity or a low flow, and just sample from here and do an exact copy. That'll be an exact copy of that patch. We want to grab this less smooth, or the smooth part, put it over there. We can do that. You could probably also use the patch tool. You could do something similar. You could say, okay, let's sample from here. Let's take this patch and kind of like, it's a bit harder to see when, let's use the layers. It is a bit harder to see when it's so blurry, but you can just like do that. Maybe, for example, this, we're going to circle over this and just move the mouse cursor around to an area that looks okay. I don't know, maybe like that. It does a pretty good job of blending it in. Same here. Okay, let's get rid of that little bump. Do that. You really could use any tool that you enjoy working with. Personally, for me, I just find the healing brush is fast, really effective, works really well, and still looks very, very natural. We talked about this dark spot on the forehead. I'm going to sample from a lighter spot and try to do that. Sometimes if that doesn't work, that might be a good candidate for the paintbrush. Grab a paintbrush, grab that color, and then just paint. Maybe grab this color, try to blend it in kind of nicer, and do something like that. And maybe here, this is a bit dark, maybe, that we don't like it. We can get the paintbrush, try to lighten it up a bit. And let's see how that looks. So you can see there, like that just by itself, still we've preserved all of her skin detail, but we've got rid of those little inconsistencies. And that's the power of frequency separation done right. I think when it's done really, really well, it's not going to look overly smoothed out. I think what happens is a lot of people will basically take the low frequency layer and just do a big Gaussian blur over the whole thing, and then it just looks really, really phony. If you want it to look good, it's going to take a bit time, but I think you can see already just how much faster it is than using dodge and burn. Dodge and burn is probably a little more less destructive, because we're not actually losing any pixels. We're just making things lighter or darker. Where here, yes, on the underlying layer, we are working destructively in a sense where those pixels don't longer exist, because we've smoothed them out to make it look how we want. But that's okay, because it's a separate little layer. We could always go back, we could bring it back, we can erase things that we don't like, we can lower the opacity, which is another really great detail, is If you think you went too far, just bring it back. You know, it was the opacity slider. Maybe you just bring it back to like 75%. So it's okay if you go a bit too far right off the bat, because you can always lower the opacity. And so like I talked about earlier, there's still some fine detail left. What you can do is just create a new pixel layer over the high frequency layer and come back in with your in-painting brush or your clone stamp tool, and you can come back and you can still try to continue to come in and remove some of these smaller little blemishes or things like that that you don't like. That's also where you're going to get rid of these hairs, just by doing that here, like so. Maybe just go ahead and do that. I will tell you that if you're going to do this way, it's better to try to do all of your underlying low frequency work first before you do this, because you can't really go back and forth. What I mean is, let's say for example, I want to go back to here. If I turn the high frequency layer off, you can see all the adjustments we made over that. And now maybe you try to like come in here. I'm going to do an extreme example. You come over here and try to paint a color, like something darker, and we go back on. Now you can see here it doesn't match anymore, because we sampled from the old way and we basically redid the underlying thing, which I can show you what I mean if I just do something like, if I just do like this. Let's do that. Yeah, see, like we're painting behind the corrections we made. So that can be sometimes tricky, and sometimes there are times when you might do something, you go back and you're like, oh, I should actually go back and fix that. There's little workarounds by just erasing the underlying freak. You can come back here and just erase this and redo it. But I do recommend trying to do all of your low frequency work first and then move on to your high frequency work. So that's it, guys. I mean, I'm not sure if this is really helpful or not. I may have rambled on for a bit, but that's basically how I do frequency separation. And with a group setting, it's really easy for me just to go boom, boom, turn it off, and that's how it looks. And what's most important was that initial radius setting. You can adjust that. And if you are sampling, or sorry, if you're going to practice with this image, I recommend practicing at different settings. Try it at 7 or 8 pixel radius. Try it at 5 or 4 pixel radius, and see the difference for yourself. See how much maybe you want actually more control. Maybe you want to actually have the skin look smoother. In that case, you might want to do a lower pixel radius, or perhaps you want it even more subtle. In that case, you're going to do a higher pixel radius. So just play around with it. And like I said, it's going to be different for each image. But I hope that this video helped you in kind of understanding the tools and the way you think about when doing frequency separation in Affinity Photo. And I think that's all I got to say. So thanks a lot, guys, for watching to the end here, if you did. And I really appreciate all the comments you guys leave when I do my videos. So hope you enjoyed it. In the next video, I will have one more in depth about dodge and burn. So that'll probably be coming in a week or two. But for now, I hope you enjoy this, and I will see you guys in the next video. All right, as always, thanks for watching.